Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the new MMA Cheat Sheet Live, starring Brandon Arcade. One man show today. All that's part of the changes that are going on, including like the way you're hearing me right now. Trying to do some upgrades while doing some changes. If you're wondering where the boys are, uh, Blood Rain 39 and Ridgers 10, well, they got busy lives. They do their own thing. They got jobs. They own property. They try to be a part of every single one of these cards, but there's a lot of UFC going on lately. And imagine if they also let us bet on Bellator. I mean, it would just be probably even too much for me. Uh, but they're going to join me for the big pay-per-view events, the big numbered events. We hope to have them back, but they're with me in spirit. I have to kind of think like them in order to actually fill the void that they used to be in. Uh, this week we have I don't even know where to begin with some of these changes. The format, I mean, we could even begin there if we really wanted to. It's pretty interesting how DK decided to hold out on us for an extra day and a half on pricing because they had completely changed not only the pricing format but the actual scoring system. Uh, the most notable, or no, eating my words, the most noticeable thing that I actually saw right off the bat was nobody is priced over 10,000. That is no longer the median line because you have to take six fighters. Now that we have to take six fighters, you have an average salary of 8,333 bucks. So instead of an average of 10K, where you would have like a 9,700 sort of matchup, coin flip style DFS coin flip, it's now the 8,100 matchup, and that's actually our main event. Dodson and Lineker are both priced at 8,100. I was I was expecting them to be somewhere close to the middle of the pack, considering a 5 round fight. But I mean, the volume alone in this fight is going to make either guy really desirable in most lineups. I mean, you could build multiple lineups where you just save a spot for that $8,100, and then you just take a couple Dotsons and take a couple Linekers because even the loser in this is going to score some points. I'm a pretty big fan of both guys here. A lot of people think Lineker is actually the one that's going to have the better gas tank, but I'm a fan of Dodson training at elevation. He's down in Albuquerque his whole life. I mean, the only time I've really seen him gas is against DJ, and well, I mean, we're talking about the champ, you know. He's got his own reality show for his next opponent because there's no one left for him to beat. Uh, I really feel Dodson is still an elite 125er and 35er. I mean, even though the majority of his losses are at higher weight classes, 45 and 35. Every one of his losses are actually decisions. Most of them are split decisions. He's never been finished. He's only been caught a couple of times where it sort of shook him, but nothing that would indicate that his chin is weak. I know Lineker hits like a shit brick house, but so does Dotson. And we've seen Lineker get rocked. I mean, he got rocked by Francisco Rivera in that giant brutal exchange before he actually got the upper hand and finished him. So I mean, I think Dodson has the better chin, and I think they're dead equal in power. It's kind of ridiculous how hard those guys hit for how small they are actually. So yeah, equal shares of both those guys. Good stuff there. Uh, I'll touch back on actual scoring and pricing a little later after we run down some of these. I'm gonna go through them pretty quick since I'm the only guy doing it. Next up, we got Will Brooks in his second appearance in the UFC, coming in against Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And if you're like me, when you heard that Will Brooks was going to fight Cowboy in a co-main, you're like, oh, that's going to be freaking sweet. That's really awesome. And then you find out it's the other Cowboy, the one that Cowboy beat, the Brazilian Cowboy, who's 14-4-1. Not one of the most amazing and exciting lightweights to ever fight in the UFC, Cowboy Cerrone. So Will Brooks will get a showcase fight here in the co-main. Uh, I guess it's to be expected if you consider how fast the UFC moved him up into the top 10 but on the strength of only beating Ross Pearson. He's already ranked like 10 or 11. So I expect that Brooks will end up rolling pretty easily here to a decision. I mean, he's the better athlete, he's a better striker, he's a better wrestler. He probably has the better ground game in terms of jiu-jitsu just because of his athleticism and his creativity. John Jones-esque, the way John Jones can submit guys like Machida. It's not because he's better at jiu-jitsu, it's just because he's a better overall fighter. I think Will Brooks is that kind of guy here against Alex Oliveira. Uh, I'm probably going to have Will Brooks in most, uh, I would say, cash lineups. Well, here, let me say on that. If you're playing cash lineups, you want Will Brooks. Me personally, because of this new scoring system, I'm actually going to do an experiment where I play the quarter arcade about 20 times and doing most of these spam variations of what will end up being in the three pack and a couple other things just to see how the scoring works out. Because the number one thing that I want to point out about the new scoring is how much it favors grapplers. And like for instance, like Jussier Formiga totally shit the bed for us last week, even though he won his fight. He got like 39 points, and it didn't even matter that he won. And 25 of that was his win bonus. Well, with the new scoring system, he would have been closer to 60, 65 points after that win, and we would have been sitting pretty and just fine with our other strikers that ended up piling up points. With this new scoring system, strikers basically scored the same amount of points. So, like, if it's a stand-up warrior with a guy who can knock you out or win by volume, he's going to put up the same score last week as he would this week. Whereas a grappler last week puts up 39, now he's going to put up 65. So it's really awesome how we can start to look and see value in some of these strong wrestlers and sambo guys and jiu-jitsu guys who are really good at advancing position, taking backs, uh, looking for the neck, looking for limbs. In near submissions are worth more points now. I'll touch on that later in terms of the actual value between everything. But yeah, so back to Will Brooks, cash worthy. I'll have him in some GPPs. In terms of the new pricing, he's the third highest guy at 9,000. Um, you could say that that was about 10.9, 10.8 last week if this was priced the same. So Will Brooks definitely priced accordingly. Oliveira way down there at the bottom. He's 7,200, which isn't a big gap like it used to be. Uh, I can't see myself having maybe more than one share of Oliveira because I guess he could grab the neck or catch them while they're dry. I mean, I don't see Will Brooks making any mistakes, really. He doesn't seem like he's lazy to the point where he wants to make mistakes. He's looking for money. He's looking for big fights, and this is definitely a showcase where he should smash. But so was Thiago Santos last week. Different mindset. I have to point out Thiago Santos, very weak-minded fighter. Will Brooks, very strong-minded fighter. Um, yeah, definitely looking for more Will Brooks and virtually no Oliveira. All right, third fight down, we've got Luis Smolka coming in against Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno is coming in on extremely short notice. He's actually a cast member on the current ongoing season of Tough. He lost his fight. It was a very spirited fight in the first round. I think he was the 16 seed going against the number 1 seed, Petonia, if I'm saying that correctly, Brazilian kid. Um, anyway, Moreno looked pretty good. He was spirited in his effort. He's raw. But Luis Smolka is already cemented in the top 10, top 12 in the UFC. He's no slouch, he's going to go out there and take care of business against a guy like Moreno on short notice. Everything that Moreno's good at, Luis Smolka is already better at. Most of Moreno's wins are by submission. Luis Smolka is much better on the ground. Much more accomplished, much more credited. Luis Smolka is actually the highest priced guy on the entire card at 9,400, and rightfully so. I've already experimented with a couple of lineups and building and seeing how many of the top guys you can afford before you have to dip down and try to find value in guys who are underdogs. And I actually think that you could fit Smolka into a decent amount of your lines. I'm okay with that. You should be too. Luis Smolka, you could bet him with confidence. I love him here. Next fight down, Josh Berkman coming against another short notice replacement, Zach Ottow. I think he was supposed to fight Ellenberger. I'm not positive. Berkman though is a pretty good favorite here. He's like he's like minus 280. In terms of scoring, he's coming in at 8,900, which puts him in fourth position in terms of how highest priced. I got to expect Berkman to use his savvy vet skills really to press Otto up against is it Otto or Otto? I don't know. I'm gonna go with Otto just because that sounds more appropriate. So I think he's gonna push Otto up against the fence and pretty much grind him down, wear him out, gas him out. This might be a fight where Josh Berkman originally would have scored about 40 points, and now he's going to score about 60 or 70 points. So if you can appreciate the grinding vet savviness of Josh Berkman, there isn't, I don't know, it's not the worst pick. Uh, Otto, on the other hand, there's just not a lot of information out on him. Uh, if you go and look at his record, I mean he's 13-3. I think he's taking this fight on like 2 weeks' notice. I mean it might even be 1 week's notice. I'm not positive on that. Otherwise, here let me see. I think I have something here. Yeah. Well, he's on a four-fight winning streak, and his last loss was to Jacob Volkman a year ago, and Jacob Volkman is pretty shot. I think he just got knocked out like two or three times in a row by other guys who dropped out of the UFC. Ottawa does have a good win streak. He's coming out of King of the Cage. I don't know. I'm still leaning towards Berkman in a big way here. He's priced accordingly. So let's go ahead and pencil in Berkman as somebody we would play for at least a little bit of cash if you're going to go that route. But uh, I don't really see a GPP upside here on either guy. Maybe you can take a flyer on Ottawa, but I'm not a big fan there. Next fight down is Henrique da Silva, Luis Henrique da Silva versus Joachim Christensen. And da Silva comes in and wrecks people while getting wrecked. He's willing to take punches to get punches, and he's very effective. He had a massive comeback in his last fight. It cost me a lot of money actually betting on the other guy. I'm not even going to talk about the other guy because then it'll send me on a downward spiral of hating on him. So we're just going to leave him nameless. Uh, Joachim Christensen is coming in on a pretty decent win streak under his 13-3 record, but Enrique De Silva, he's got UFC experience in a big way. He wins fights devastating fashion. He's the second highest price guy. Yeah, he's at 9,200, and I thought he was going to end up being the highest priced guy. Actually, I knew Smolka was going to be up there, but he's probably looking at a first round finish here against a guy who, well, actually, to be honest, he doesn't really get knocked out, but he goes to decisions a lot, and Henrique de Silva is really good at avoiding guys who are pressure fighters and landing counter shots that allow him to get those finishes. Kind of similar to the way Stipe uh, knocked out uh, what's his face for the title, Verdum. Anyway, moving on. I love that I'm allowed to have dead air time now. That way you guys are forced to wonder if I'm still here or not. It's like torture. I love that you have to listen to me talk to myself too. All right, next down. Andre Fili versus Hakron Diaz. This is a very important fight because Andre Fili is like one of the first guys that's undervalued that I think is going to win. Hakron Diaz, like when he's standing there and he's walking out to start a fight, you think he's Jose Aldo. And then he throws a leg kick and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like Jose Aldo's little brother. And then nothing else happens after that, ever. I mean, he ends up sort of starting to clinch with you. He gets gassy. He's not a very high volume at all. I mean, he's really good on the ground. He's an opportunist on the ground. Um, if he sees the advantage, he will try to go for it. And Andre Fili is the kind of guy who will walk straight into a telegraph punch. But I think that volume alone and Hakron Diaz's inability to engage, I don't know. He just doesn't have a killer instinct, and I think Andre Fili's fighting for a paycheck here. So I see Andre Fili coming out in a big way and putting the hurt on Hakron Diaz. If not for an early like flash sort of stoppage, it's going to be more of a long volume based, grind it out, pound him out sort of situation. He might get a late finish, but I see Andre Fili winning by volume. And considering his price, where we got Mr. Feely is at 7,700. He's about 400 or 500 below the median line. I like his value there. I think that I'll have a lot of shares of Andre Feely, and I doubt I'll take a Diaz flyer. If I did take a Diaz flyer, I mean it'd be like one GPP, but I mean he's got 6 UFC fights. I believe he's 3-3. Yeah, he's 3-3, and they're all decisions. Win or lose, it's a decision. So I see Andre Fili coming out here and trying to make a statement. Otherwise, this fight is going to be boring to watch. Please, Andre Fili, make it exciting. All right, next up we have Walt Harris coming in against Shamil Abdurakhmanov. Butchered. That's what I do with names. Walt Harris. Yeah, said that one right. All right. it, I prefer Abdurakhmanov here. I like the fact that he's coming off a win against Anthony Hamilton. That's a pretty strong win. Uh, Walt Harris, I just don't think he's up to snuff for heavyweight. He has a head kick loss to Nikita Krylov before he dropped down to 205. He got a second opportunity in the UFC. I think he beat Curtis Blades. No, Curtis Blades lost to Ngannou. We'll touch on him later. I'm doing this all on the fly here. It's kind of interesting being a one-man show. Usually, when I got the boys to rely on, I can go through my notes during their little sessions, and then everything's solid. Uh, Walt Harris is actually coming in on a win against Cody East, who is that guy Dana White found on looking for a fight. He's fighting later on the card too as well, and I don't like him there either. I know I'm doing two fights at once here, but it's my show now. uh, yeah, I'm looking at this, and Walt Harris's record is decision loss to Rochelle, head kick loss to Krylov. He gets a win in Titan FC over DJ Linderman, and that got him back into the UFC only so he could be knocked out by Soa Paleli. So then I mean, we're talking like a huge layoff, or like 16-month layoff, and then he comes back revitalized and smashes Cody East. Uh, Very strange guy, kind of athletic, not very good with the fight IQ. He doesn't think too much. He gets panicked and then he tries to do something athletic. And if he's already gassed, then the only thing he can do is throw big looping punches, and it doesn't do him any good. I like Abdurakhmanov to win by decision more than likely, and there's a good chance that once Walt Harris gasses, he's just going to get on top of him and smash him, and the ref's just going to stop it more because he's exhausted and less because he's hurt. Um, Kind of similar to how Abdurakhmanov lost to Timothy Johnson in his UFC debut, which is kind of funny. His other losses were just decision losses, but if you go back and watch that Timothy Johnson versus Abdurakhmanov fight, it's really exciting. They both drop each other a couple of times. It's a schlabanaka, and then all of a sudden Timothy Johnson gets on top of him, and Abdurakhmanov's like, "I'm done. Just get off me, please. Make this man get off me." Kind of entertaining. Next up, Kaida Nakamura coming in against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Where do these guys get their names? It's awesome. I wish I had like 8 names. Kaida Nakamura is coming off the strength of a pretty solid win against Kyle Noke. In fact, I had a lot of shares of Noke that day. Me and Ridge were talking about this. We both had a lot of Noke that day, and Nakamura just totally wiped his ass with every one of our lines. It was like, ugh, it was the worst. Lizu Dos Santos, he's a power puncher. He's really good at throwing big bombs until his arms fill up with blood and he gasses. He has a split decision loss to Nicholas Dalby, but he did knock out the very overrated Omari Akhmedov. Uh, Before that, he was a jungle fight champion. I actually think 185, and then he dropped down to 170 in the UFC. I think that's what a lot of those guys do. I'm not implying steroids, but sometimes when you get off the juice, you can make a lower weight class. I like Nakamura actually to win this fight by submission. I like his grappling prowess, and in the new scoring system, Nakamura is way more valuable. Uh, his ability to advance position and take the back and fish for the neck is pretty solid. I mean, 32 wins, he's got like 17 submission victories. He is susceptible to big shots, but there's with Dos Santos, it's a early, not often sort of thing. He's got to get it in the first 4 or 5 minutes, or he's probably not going to get it. Nakamura's going to take over and get a submission in the second round, pretty similar to how he got Noke with 1 second left in the second round. So I'm gonna have pretty good shares of Nakamura, even though he's at like 8,400, which would put him something last week would be like 10-5. I'm still okay with that just because the new scoring system allows him to score over 100 points in the second round with that finish. Uh, Next up, we've got Nate, the sort of used to be great Marquardt versus Tamden, the widow peaked wrecker McCrory. Yes, I gave him a nickname because the barn cat. I can't. Well, I guess you can't really beat that. The barn cat's pretty dope. Uh, Nate Marquardt, for some reason, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing with this guy. He gets kicked out of the UFC on a big win streak because he has a little bit too much TRT in his system. Now he's getting his head bashed in, knockout losses in 4 of his last 6 fights, and they won't cut him or make him retire. It's like his punishment for doing steroids in the past is now he has to be a walking corpse for our amusement. I'm kind of upset with this, but on the flip side, Tamden McCrory is looking quite juicy. Is a guy at 8,200 who should KTFO Mr. Used to be great. Uh, in Tamden's last fight, he got caught, dropped, knocked cold, but that's pretty much the first time he's ever had something like that happen. Whereas Nate Marquardt has it happen all the time. Uh, I like Tamden in a big way here, though I will have a couple GPP flyers on Marquardt just because he does have flash brilliance. I can't figure it out. Somewhere in there, he is still great, but man, that dude needs to take like 3 years off and reevaluate. Yeah, moving on. Jonathan Wilson versus Ion Kuteleba. Jonathan Wilson, I like his potential, but I think he got into the UFC way too early. Uh, Ion Kuteleba, he looks like he is ready for the UFC, but he had to fight Misha Kukanov in his debut, and he just got overwhelmed. It was pretty much the definition of jitters. Uh, Jonathan Wilson, he had a pretty strong debut against Chris Dempsey. He got a first round finish in like 50 seconds, but then fought Henrique de Silva, the guy who's the second highest guy on this card, and he got knocked out in the second round. Uh, Ion Kudeleba, I like his upside here for GPPs. Jonathan Wilson, I don't know. He should probably, I don't know. I'm gonna say 4 or 5 more fights, and then he actually deserves to be in the UFC. Probably needs that to be a little more seasoned. But overall, Ion Kudeleba is probably going to be my guy here. Jonathan Wilson, 7,500. It's the third lowest. Uh, Kudeleba, 8,700. He's right below Walt Harris there. So in terms of value guys here, we've got Abdurakhmanov, uh, and I really like him there. We're about to touch on Vieira. Feely in a big way, just to retouch on some of these. Uh, and then just because I don't want to go over it completely, the Curtis Blades versus Cody East fight, real quick. I got to have Blades in a big way. I don't see Cody East being anywhere near UFC ready. Uh, in fact, that's sort of the guy that Jonathan Wilson should be fighting. Um, yeah, let's see. All right. Touching up next on, once again, the Jonathan Wilson versus Kudeleba fight and the Cody East Blades fight. I did mash them together because they all have either fought each other or have some sort of connection via these fights, as well as some of the other guys up here. Man, they got a lot of confusing heavyweight matchups on here. It's like the recycled garbage bin of that division. It's like the consolation bracket. They're trying to battle it out to see who actually gets to join the rankings again. It's kind of sad. Uh, yeah. So in terms of that East versus Blades fight, I really got to lean towards Blades in a big way, but his price tag, if he doesn't get a first round finish, it just might not be worth it. I mean, he's 8,300, and I'd rather have McCrory or Dodson or Lineker, who are right under him. And then you got Nakamura right above him, who's more guaranteed to have. He's guaranteed to have better volume and score more points in the grappling. Uh, so just to recap on that, I guess overall we're gonna go with Blades and Kudeleba. I like both those guys in GPPs. And the curtain jerker is Kelly Fashholz versus Ketlin Vieira. Ketlin Vieira has won 5 of her 6 fights by finish, uh, and she's able to finish throughout all the rounds. She has third round finishes, second round finishes, and first round finishes. Uh, she's fighting Kelly Fashholz, who actually came into the UFC really young in her career. I mean, she was 3-0 and forced to fight Lauren Murphy on short notice. Uh, she lost via TKO really late in the third round after just getting whooped up on the whole time. It was competitive early, but overall, Lauren Murphy took that fight over and won. Ketlin Vieira, though, I like her upside here. She's a smaller fighter for the division, though Sherdog doesn't give you any stats on her, really. You can just sort of see from her build that she's, a little more stocky, a little more short for 135. I'm going to like her grappling prowess here and her ability to get submissions against Fashels, who also likes to go for submissions. So I think that the ground game will be induced, and Ketlin Vieira is going to score a lot of points. So I am going once again with Vieira to close out this card. She's 7,600, so there's a lot of value there. Uh, yeah, I'm feeling good about those picks. All right. After those picks, I really wish I had a Tony Reality to run back and tell me every little thing I did wrong. You guys ever feel like that sometimes? You wish you had your own real life Tony Reality? Yeah. Did I have 100% day today? Hmm. All right. Let's run back a little bit of value. I want to tell you guys about a couple of changes, a couple of different things we're going to be doing. And we'll go ahead and close out this podcast. Short and sweet. I think that's how I'm going to be doing it now. Uh, don't want to soak up too much of your guys' time. Probably should give a shout out to DFS Prime lineups. Prime's the man. Anybody who wants to join Team Prime, hit up Gutlines, hit up my personal handle at Brandon Arcade. You can even bug BloodRain39 and Ridgers 10, and they'll still plug you in. Anybody and everybody, just tell them you listen to the podcast and you want to join the groups. That way you have access to all the other podcasts. That's right. I just dropped a little teaser right there. I'm going to be doing more podcasts. I'm planning on doing a football podcast, hopefully on Wednesdays, the same time I'll do the uh, MMA podcast, just so I can have it out by Thursday morning and before the first game of the day. Uh, when I do that podcast, more than likely I'm going to be joined by my longtime best friend, Adam Hurley. He goes by DMB Hurley on Twitter. He's the host of the Put 'em Over podcast. We've been best friends for 23 years, and it's always a good time when we hang out, and we think we could bring some intelligent DFS NFL related banter your guys' way that you would enjoy in your car rides, or maybe while you're sitting in the office and you're bored, something to listen to. Us gab about DFS. We'll more than likely cover pricing for FanDuel and DraftKings, though on the strength of Prime's lineups and advice, I think we might be dabbling in Yahoo soon. Uh, I'm also looking at doing some other future podcasts involving weekly sports. If I can uh, set up the right time and actually make a schedule, I would like to do a weekly NASCAR, a PGA, and then when the NHL and NBA seasons start, I would like to focus mainly on the weekend matchups and do some breakdowns for those sports. It would be impossible to do those daily because, it's just time consuming. You can't do a podcast every single day. You guys would get sick of me. You wouldn't want to hear me that much. It's already bad enough I'm trying to shove like 4 new podcasts down your throat. But if we focus just on the weekend slates, I've always loved the weekend NBA slates. You get those really early games. We can focus on those when normally you wouldn't have guys putting anything out unless they did it in advance, like I will be. NHL, though, I'm really super excited about. I had a really good cash rate last season. I started at the halfway point, dabbled in it, and had some success. And then the season ended too quickly. I was upset. I wanted to keep winning. And then Prime, he's amazing at DFS NHL. He's got like a 70% cash rate. I mean, that's amazing for a daily sport. If you can cash at that rate, you are making some serious dough. So definitely be looking for those lineups. They're coming out. I believe the season starts on the 15th of October, so we're just a couple weeks away. NBA is the 25th, I believe. Let's see. Anything else we forgot? Anything else I said wrong? Anything annoying you wish I would stop doing? Please let me know. We're going to be doing this often, and it will soon be a part of the exclusive premium package through Prime. When you're in the group and you're a member of the Slack room and the Gutlines room, and of course the VIP room of Prime, uh, you'll have access to all these podcasts to help you build better lines and to give you advice when you think you need it. Outside of that, we will be doing it free for a little bit, just so the public can be aware that we exist. I think I'll start releasing the MMA one as the only free one, possibly, once we get the ball rolling with the other podcasts. I'm looking at making it full scale, even including video with graphic. It should be interesting, not just the really crappy one that I put out before. Uh, Always looking to improve, always looking to do things better. Even interested in possibly doing a podcast previewing the MLB playoffs. We'll see if we can get Blood Rain on that one. I know he's looking forward to the baseball playoffs. Finally get some consistency in some of these lineups. Get some of these rookies out of there. Uh, all right. So that's it for our time. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Let me know. And always hit us up. Have a good one.